Well, thank you, Saul, thank you, JNF, for having me on. Um, I'll pick up from where Russell left, and he was talking about the northern border. I've been so many times to that border, but from the Lebanese side, and over there it's called the southern border, of course. Over the past few days, we have seen an uptick in military escalation on both sides. Actually, Israel just took out a few rocket depots. Two of them were very close to Baalbek, where I grew up. So this is a war that has been escalating, and this war is very different from the war that Israel have been having with Hamas since October 7. Now, on the southern front, I'd say Israel has pretty much prevailed over Hamas. It's a matter of time that Israel can get to Sinwar. And the reason we know that Hamas and Islamic Jihad have lost is that they promised to switch to suicide bombings, which is dangerous, but which is also an indication that these organizations, as a military militias, are not able to function the way they used to before and on October 7th. So with the south of Israel getting phased out, I think Israeli attention will have to move to the north. Now, what you have to understand in the north is that number one, Israel has a slam dunk case against Hezbollah. There's at least two or three UN Security Council resolutions that demand that Hezbollah disarm and that the Lebanese army deploys to the south, and that the two countries live not at peace, but according to the 1949 truce agreement between the two sides. This is in theory, but in practice, Hezbollah has not disarmed. The Lebanese army has not played any role in reining in Hezbollah, and Hezbollah has been living right at the border. Now, if you've been to that border, you would know that there are a few villages on both sides where they're almost window to window or wall to wall. The distance is very close. And after October 7, now we know that fences do not really protect Israelis much. So on October 8th, I think Nasrallah miscalculated, and he thought that when Hamas started that war, he thought that the end of the war would be a truce like the five previous rounds between Israel and Hamas. If you remember, on October 7 and October 8, number one, Israel was caught off guard, and number two, it looked as if Hamas was holding territory, and Hamas was putting out statement to the effect that we are rotating our fighters while holding Israeli territory. So the first 24, 48 hours, it looked as if Hamas was winning, and this probably prompted Hezbollah and Nasrallah in Lebanon to start to launch their war on Israel, and they called it the war for the support of Hamas and Gaza. Now, here's the thing. What Nasrallah has done so far is that he's insisted to tie his war to Gaza, meaning that he has pledged to not stop warring with Israel unless there's a deal between Israel and Hamas. Now, this is very bad for Israel and very good for Iran and Hezbollah because, number one, it gives Iran a say over Israeli sovereignty. Whatever Israel does with the Palestinians is none of the business of Lebanon or the Iranians. Number two, if Nasrallah gets what he wants on this, he will get the Palestinian issue out of the hand of the moderate Gulf governments, moderate Arab governments, Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Jordan, and this will be exclusively in the hands of Iran and Hezbollah. So this is very tricky, and I've seen that we here in Washington, the Biden administration has committed a few errors by encouraging Israel, saying, look, if you go to a peace deal, to a truce deal, I'm sorry, to a ceasefire deal with Hamas, it'll be a 2-for-1. You go for a ceasefire with Hamas, you'll get a ceasefire with both Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, this is very bad for Israel because this actually grants Hezbollah what it wants. it ties Hezbollah to Hamas and Iran to Hamas, and it gives Iran influence and control over the Palestinian issue. Thankfully, so far, Israel has said no and has been countering Hezbollah's war. And if you remember that the last major conflict between the two took place in 2006, 33 days of war, during which Israel did not kill a single prominent Hezbollah commander or politician. Israel, of course, Israel raised down vast territory of Hezbollah, where Hezbollah maintains its troops and installations and where its partisans live. But Israel at the time failed to take out these commanders. Now, since October 8th, Israel has so far taken out 400 Hezbollah commanders. At least 12 of them are from number 2 downwards. That's right after Nasrallah and downwards. The chief of staff of Hezbollah and downwards. So Israel has successfully thinned out the command rank and file of Hezbollah. Israel has also struck at least 4 arms depots, including storage of rockets. So that took out a number of Hezbollah's ammunition. So that also weakens Hezbollah. So what we see is that Israel has been eroding the ability of Hezbollah to fight this war. To my mind, this war is coming. There's no questions about it, because we in America started a mediation effort in which we told Nasrallah, listen, let there be a ceasefire for a ceasefire. You stop shooting, the Israelis will stop shooting, and then in a few months we'll revisit this and we'll see how we can patch things up. And Nasrallah said no. He insisted to connect his war to what's going on in Gaza. That is, he will not stop until there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, what I think will happen in Gaza, there will never be a ceasefire. This war will be phased out, as we're seeing now. Think of it in a way similar to how Israel phased out its war, the Operation Defensive Shield at the time in 2002, that it started to bring to an end the second Intifada. So there's no end date for that operation. It just kept on going until the terrorist organizations were weakened enough, were broken, that things just stopped on their own. So this is the same way that this war in Gaza will end. At a certain point, Hamas will be unable to threaten Israel anymore. So the bottom line is that there will be no end date. Sinwar will not dig out and flash his victory sign like he did in the past 5 rounds and said, the war has ended and I'm still here. Israel is not granting Sinwar this honor. So if this is not happening, it means that there's no end date for the Hezbollah war, because Nasrallah clearly insists on tying the two together. Since this is the case, this means that Hezbollah will keep on fighting. If Hezbollah keeps on fighting, as Russell said, 110,000 Israelis from the north can't go back. So this, to my mind, this means that a major war between the two sides is inevitable. What happens in the case of war? What will be Israel's goals? It will be different in that Israel will not go after Hezbollah all the way to Beirut. It will not try to decimate Hezbollah the same way it eradicated Hamas in Gaza. What Israel will try to do is that to push Hezbollah fighters enough distance. Now, everyone is thinking of the Litani River, which is 22 miles to the north of the border. The point of pushing these fighters is not to stop the Hezbollah rocket or missile threat against Israel. It's to stop the threat that comes from Hezbollah's anti-tank missiles that they can launch, that their fighters can launch, and with which they can hit civilians, troops, houses. So this is the real threat that Israel will try to push back, with the hope that if there's a major war, Hezbollah will take a lot of losses. This will buy Israel another decade or 2 of calm on the northern border. Now, just keep in mind, this war will be much uglier than the one in Gaza. Hezbollah has much more capabilities. Some say 100,000, 150,000 rockets, including PGMs, the precision guided missiles. So Hezbollah will be able to give Israel a bloody nose to an extent. But I'm sure Israel will respond on a much bigger scale, and this kind of imbalance between the two sides has played as a deterrent so far for Hezbollah. What we know is that Hezbollah doesn't want to go to a full scale war, but if what we have now keeps on going, then I see no choices for Israel but to go to war and push Hezbollah north. So this is what I've been watching over the past weeks and months. Over the past 10 months, we've been focused on Gaza. Over the past 6 to 8 weeks, our focus has shifted to the north, south of Lebanon, north of Israel. The situation is very volatile, on the brink of a major war. It's just a question of when Israel is ready to go to this war, and it's a question whether Hezbollah will keep on pushing, or will probably take an off ramp. Many off ramps. The French have offered them off ramps to save face and get out of this. I don't think they'll take it. So this is where we are now. It's not a rosy picture, but it's a war that I think Israel will have to deal with soon.